Hi, my name is Dave. You're listening to the last podcast where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. If this is the first time you're listening, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you continue to find tips, ideas, and value from listening to this podcast. Today is Poetry Friday, and today I have one poem. It's called, Have You Ever Thought About the Flood? Have you ever thought about the flood that God sent that wiped away mankind except Noah and his family back in the day? Evil, so wicked, what a mess. God said he would send a flood of waters to destroy all flesh. It grieved God's heart, and he made it rain 40 days and 40 nights. Talk about a watermark. What a plight. Can you imagine it? Raining for 40 days and 40 nights? The skies opened up and the fountains of the deep broke loose. And everything that once stood tall was now beneath the ruins of the truth. The mountains disappeared and the valleys were covered. The places people called home were no longer discovered. The laughter stopped, the noise grew still, and the plans of men met the power of God's will. And there was Noah, building something people have never seen, preparing for rain when the skies were still clean. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the ridicule, the whispers, the jokes? Imagine the people walking by like Noah had lost all hope. But Noah kept hammering. Noah kept building. Noah kept obeying while everybody else was living like judgment was all about the land. And isn't that something? Because sometimes obedience looks crazy to the people who don't hear what you've heard. Sometimes faith looks foolish until God confirms his final word. They say, history will repeat itself. I like taking long walks and getting in tune with my thoughts. It's good for your health and mental health. It's what I decided to do as part of taking care of myself. And sometimes while I'm walking, I look up at the sky and wonder how many people back then ignored the signs passing by. Did they feel something changing? Did they sense something strange? Did their hearts ever tremble when the atmosphere changed? Or were they too busy buying, selling, laughing, living day by day, never thinking about a world that could suddenly pass away? That's what made me think about life now, because we live in a time where people are busy too. Busy building their dreams, chasing what's new. Busy scrolling, busy stressing, busy impressing and confessing they're fine while secretly second guessing. We wake up and go to work, we pay bills, we chase thrills, and sometimes we ignore what our spirit still feels. We see storms forming, but we call them clouds. We hear warnings inside, but the world's noise is too loud. We keep saying, I'll change tomorrow. I'll pray tomorrow. I'll forgive tomorrow. I'll deal with the pain tomorrow. But what if tomorrow is not promised like what we think? What if the boat that we built, and while we're still standing on the brink, I'm not saying that all this to bring fear to your mind. I'm saying this because God has always warned mankind. Before the flood came, there was a message. Before judgment came, there was mercy. Before the rain fell, there was time. And that's what touches me. God just didn't send water. He sent the warning. He gave people time before the heavens burst. But pride has a way of closing the ear. Comfort has a way of making warnings disappear. And when the rain finally came, it was too late. It was too late to believe what Noah said. Too late to knock on the ark. Too late to bow their head. 40 days and 40 nights, the rain kept falling. The water kept rising. The old world was dying. The ark kept floating. Isn't that powerful? The same water that destroyed the world lifted Noah above it. The same storm that ended corruption carried obedience through it. That's the message right there. Sometimes the storm is just not sent to destroy. Sometimes it comes to separate you from what's been killing your joy. Sometimes the rain comes to wash away what you refuse to release. Sometimes the flood comes to force your soul into a different kind of peace. Because not every ending is punishment. Some endings are protection. Some storms are correction. Some floods are redirection. And as I walk, I think about my own life. There were things in me that needed to be washed away. Old thoughts, old wounds, old beliefs, old ways. There were parts of me that could not go where God was taking me. There were patterns in my life that had to be drowned before the real me can be free. And I know that's hard to admit because we don't always call pain evil. Sometimes we call it normal. We call it who we are. We call it survival. But God sees deeper. He sees what grief planted. He sees what trauma watered. He sees what fear built. He sees what shame taught us. And sometimes God says, I love you too much to let this version of you keep ruling your life. So he sends the rain. Not always rain from the sky, but rain in the soul. Rain that makes you think. Rain that makes you pause. Rain that makes you question, what in the world have you been standing on? Rain that makes you wake up. Rain that breaks you down. Rain that makes you realize you need more than solid ground. You need an ark. You need faith. You need truth. You need obedience. You need a place in God where the storm cannot move. Because the flood teaches us one thing. It teaches us this. The world can change overnight. What we see stable yesterday can be gone by morning light. But if your life is anchored in God, you can rise above the waters. You can survive what others said would take you under. Noah didn't survive because he understood everything. He survived because he obeyed what God told him to build. And maybe that's the question we need to ask ourselves today. What is God telling us to build before the rain comes? Is he telling us to build our faith? To build our character? To build our prayer life? To build our discipline? To build our family life? To build a new mindset? To build a life that doesn't collapse every time the weather changes? Because the storms will come. The rain will fall. The waters will rise. And life has a way of testing us all. But blessed is the person who prepares in faith before they can see the clouds. Blessed is the person who still listens to God when the crowd becomes too loud. So I take my walks and I get in tune with my thoughts. I think about Noah. I think about the rain. I think about mercy, and I think about my pain. I think about how God can end one chapter and begin another. I think about how he closes one door and still keeps me covered. I think about the ark resting after the storm and how sometimes you don't know you've been saved until you've reached a place you've never known before. Then came the rainbow, a sign in the sky, a promise from God, a reminder that even after the destruction, mercy still talks. And maybe that's the hope we need today, no matter what. No matter what has flooded your life, no matter what has washed away, God still knows how to leave a promise in the middle of your pain. So have you ever thought about the flood? Not just the water, not just the rain, not just Noah, not just your pain, but the warning, the obedience, the mercy, the door, the ark, the promise, and the chance to live once more. Because sometimes life will ask you to build before you understand, to trust before you see, to obey before the rain, and to believe that God still has a plan, even when the whole world changes. So keep walking, keep thinking, keep praying, keep building, because when the rain comes and the water rises, may your soul be found inside the ark with the Most High. Hey, my name is Dave. You're listening to The Last Podcast, where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast. Do me another favor and like this podcast. I really appreciate you listening. It's Friday. Be safe. Have a wonderful weekend and be blessed. So long.